So, another Saturday, another convention. You're pros at this by now. You get there early, you make your plans, you lay out exactly what you're going to do for the day. And then when it all goes horribly wrong, you decide, you know what, I'm just going to sit back, relax, and let the flow of the day take me. And that's what we're doing today. I had wanted to get there early for a couple of reasons. One, because I really wanted to plan out the day. But the other because this particular hotel is a little difficult to navigate. Either way, I found my way through and pretty immediately ran into a legend in the industry. I sat down and got to talk to Bob Hall. We are sitting here with Bob Hall, a legendary artist. But how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for taking some time to sit with me today.
Sure. It's a lovely day. Great con.
It is. It absolutely is. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I had a career with Marvel. I was with them for about 15 years. Mm-hmm. Primarily penciling, which means that I would... was the storyteller. I would, me and the writer and I would get a scenario. I would break that down into pictures in pencil. Then it would go to an inker, and then to a letterer, and then to a colorist, and it was all an assembly line. So I did most of Marvel's characters at one time or the other. Except for the X-Men, I never really did any X-Men. I was on the Avengers side. So I did a couple of runs on the Avengers, a lot of Spider-Man, a lot of Thor, and was the co-creator of West Coast Avengers. They had so many Avengers, they had to farm them out to another coast. And something called Squadron Supreme, a graphic novel called Emperor Doom, where Doom finally takes over the world and runs it and does it very well, except nobody has free will. So, and eventually, a lot of great stuff for Marvel. Then I went to Valiant, where I was writing as well as drawing a project called Shadow Man. Did that for several years, and eventually was doing Batman in about the year 2000. Then comics completely collapsed, and I started a Shakespeare festival and did that for a long time. And now I'm back doing comics, doing educational comics. That's my entire career. You need not ask me anything else.
So you have had your hands in so much of our popular culture. You kind of, in a way, helped define where we are now. And
gee, I did not know that. Tell me more.
It's absolutely thrilling to be able to sit here and talk with one of the people who helped create so many different aspects of so many different people's childhoods and even into adulthoods, because stories have an impact, and the way we tell stories, it's kind of a cultural thing how we share them, and your role in that is absolutely incredible.
Well, stories are where it's at. Without stories, we aren't human.
Yeah.
And, we're celebrating a tradition that goes back to Homer and beyond. The first sort of superheroes were in Western culture were the Greek myths, and we've even incorporated some of those into Marvel. Mm-hmm. And it's thrilling to be part of that. Also to be part of the mythology that Marvel was creating. At one point, I don't think you thought about it when you first started, but eventually you realized that a new mythology was being created for a more secular world.
Right.
And I'm sort of amazed by it. You didn't really think about that a lot. You were just trying to tell this story at this time. But of course you look back, and then especially after the Marvel films, and say, wow, this has permeated our society. Mm-hmm. And you now look at a magazine like New Yorker, which at some point seemed very divorced from comics. Their covers, the interior art, and just look at them and look at the influence that comic art has had on our art in general.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that when you took the break from comics, you started Shakespeare, which again is after my own heart. I'm a Shakespeare nerd myself.
I really started as a theater person and meandered into comics, and found I could do them because of the storyteller training. When I got into comics, you could kind of earn while you learn as an artist. I mean, you had to be able to draw.
Right.
But if you were a storyteller, you could probably find work. And when I rediscovered comics in my 20s, and I was not a fan. I turned into a fan because somebody said, "Well, why don't you look at these? You can draw, you can tell stories. Look at what's happening." And it was a Renaissance time in comic. It was the early '70s, and I said, "Boy, I want to do this. This is really great."
Was there a moment where you realized that you had a position where there was an issue or a story or something you generally really wanted to talk about, and you realized, "Oh, I can do this now"?
A lot of the work I did for Marvel was writer generated, and you made a big contribution to the writer's essential story. When I worked for Valiant and started to be able to write my own work and then write it and draw it, and I did something called Shadow Man set in New Orleans, and then a crime thing called Armed and Dangerous, which I think is probably my favorite work. And all of a sudden I was able to tell stories and incorporate things that I knew into those stories, so that I think one of the things that some people will say there are only so many plots, but one of the things that makes them unique is if your writer in high school would say to you, "Write what you know," and you would say, "But I want to write fantasy." And it took me a long time to figure out what they meant was, maybe they weren't even sure what they meant, but how I've taken it is take bits and pieces as if this character is kind of like my Uncle Charlie. How would Uncle Charlie have behaved in this situation? And all of a sudden you're telling a unique story. Yeah. Or you base a plot around something. In the crime comic, I was living in New York, picked up the New York Post one day, which I seldom read, but I saw it on the newsstand, severed head found in dryer in a laundromat. And I looked and I said, "Oh my God, I've been in that laundromat. That's only 2 blocks away from me." And I kept reading the Post for about 2 weeks saying, "I want to find out what that story." Never happened. So the first issue of the crime comic was how that head got in that dryer. And it was specific, it wasn't generic, it was about something. So that I think was the revelation to me of storytelling. We're telling stories, they seem to be about these characters that the company owns or icons, but really, if you're doing it well, you're telling personal stories as well.
Yeah, it's the little human elements, the little human touches that make the story stand out.
And I think that was Stan Lee's brilliance. Really was bringing that aspect to comics. Yeah. Saying if it strikes a chord with you and you say, I understand that would be what it would be like to be a superhero if I could be a superhero. That would be this similar as a good writer like Raymond Chandler, and you said that's what it would be like to be a detective if I had the guts to be a detective. So same idea.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to sit down and talk with me today. I really appreciate it, and to be sitting across from somebody who helped define a lot of what brought me into storytelling myself is, for me personally, an honor. And I'm thrilled to talk with you.
Well, it's an honor to meet fans like you and to be able to realize that you did have an impact. And so it's shared.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
After getting what felt like a masterclass from one of the best in the business, I decided to look for one of my friends when I got completely lost.
The ceiling of this place is so high, it actually has its own atmosphere.
Look, there's clouds. Yeah, I know what art is. Why? A few bad jokes aside, I found myself sitting in a panel where I met one of my new best friends, Kat Robinson. So we are sitting here with Kat Robinson. Kat, thanks so much for taking some time to
Thanks
sit
for
with me today.
having me here today. This is fabulous.
So, tell us what you do, because this is fascinating.
Well, my general elevator line is, hi, I'm Kat Robinson. I preach the gospel of Arkansas food. I've kind of taken it upon myself as a mission to cover Arkansas food and foodways and travel and anything about the natural state. I feel like I'm a personal storyteller and travel guide, and it's led me into some amazing places.
Yeah, so we were talking earlier, and you created a documentary
Yes.
about food.
Yes. Actually, more than one, but the one that we're talking about here today is Arkansas Dairy Bars, Neat Eats and Cool Treats. And it was a neat production that took advantage of the fact that there wasn't a lot of stories I could do in the restaurant business during the pandemic. And when it did come to me in January of 2020, I just dropped off some books. I'm primarily an author. I dropped off some books at one of my sellers, and I went by a little place called Mel's Dairy Bar in Malvern, Arkansas. I remembered it from whenever I was a kid, and I wanted to see, hey, is it still there? Not only was it there, it was thriving. There was a crowd. Anyway, with Arkansas Dairy Bars, I'm sitting there in my car, and I'm seeing this crowd of people, and I'm enjoying my caramel milkshake, and I'm thinking this is the perfect pandemic restaurant because you order through a window, you have that degree of separation, and there's this nostalgia around it. So I developed a criteria for what I wanted to do with the book. I wanted to make sure every one of these dairy bars were locally owned and operated. Mm-hmm. They had a window that you had to order through. They offered ice cream. They offered something other than ice cream, and they were permanent establishments. So sorry, food trucks, but not this time. And I thought I would get maybe 50. And as I did my research throughout the state, I ended up finding a total of 98 places.
Oh, wow.
Now, 94 whenever I actually sat down to write the book, 4 in the process of finishing it up, including a couple that had reopened. And I'm like, this is great. I can start working on this because without a project, I can't deal with myself. So I got out on the road, and over the course of the next 6 weeks, I had gotten about 2/3 of them in the can. I'd gone to each of these places. I had ordered the food and brought it out, put it on a tray, and shot it on the dash of my car. And I have this great body of work that I'm putting together. I've got my research, I've got my words, and then I got a call from Arkansas PBS. They were getting back in touch with me because the year before we had started talking about doing a special on agritourism. Mm-hmm. Basically farms that you can visit and, city folks can come out to the country sort of thing. And I'm like, I love this idea. I want to get back to this idea, but I can't because I'm halfway through writing this book about dairy bars in the state of Arkansas. And they're, hey, that sounds good, do that. Now, I'd had the idea for going back and doing more production. I was going to take charge of production, have a house that was working with me, and found out they were no longer available. They were working on museum exhibits. So with a contract in hand and 10 weeks to produce a product, I found myself in the role of producer and director and editor, and maybe that wasn't the best thing, but hiring my own crew. And I managed to get a fantastic cinematographer to go out with me. And over the course of 3 weeks, we crossed the entire state, and we shot 13 different locations, doing 13 different separate stories that ended up becoming part of the Arkansas Dairy Bars documentary.
That's fantastic. And what's interesting, we were talking before that you were a news producer.
Yes, back in the day. I mean, that's back in the day. In 1995, I actually started as a television producer at a little place called KAIT TV in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and ended up working with THV This Morning, the morning show at the CBS affiliate in Little Rock, for 8 years, and I loved it. But in 2007, I got tired of the day-to-day grind, and I had about 18 different reasons. It was time for me to do something on my own. So at 33 years old, I quit my job and with no real game plan decided I'm going to get out there and I'm going to write for a living. And I accidentally fell into the role of documenting Arkansas's food because I had a couple of posts on a website called Tie-Dye Travels that I put out there. And the ones I wrote about food would get picked up and shared, not only with people I knew, but with different news outlets that were looking for that content. And I thought, well, if I write about food, I'll never starve. And, well, that was actually pretty accurate. So I had that background to go back to, so I can tell people what to do. But to actually be out there on the ground and making the big decisions was daunting,
It's
to say
a
the
different
least.
beast. It is
really,
a very different beast.
It very much is. Having a budget and having 10 weeks to turn around a product that would be available nationwide was, yeah, it was a little scary. It was a little scary.
But you were doing something that everybody loves, and
Yes.
it's food. Why do you think that food is one of those things that no matter where we go or what we do, we always find ourselves talking about it?
Food is the only thing, eating is the only thing that we do, of course drinking, chewing gum, that involves all 5 of the senses. Not only do we taste it, we smell it, we see it, we touch it, and we can hear that snap, crackle, and pop. But it's more, food is what we have whenever we celebrate the big occasions in our lives. Thanksgiving, baby showers, and weddings. I mean, everything has tied to some sort of consumption like this. And we've been trained even through our mass media today, the malt shop, or the country restaurant. These are places that we gather together and we enjoy our repast together and we make memories. And if you make memories, you're going to want to come back and make those memories again in some fashion or another. That's one of the reasons why cookbooks are just overwhelmingly like the most popular kind of book that you can find. You cannot swing a cat without hitting a cookbook of some sort in a store. It's family. We break bread together. We, for 2,000 years in one religion and longer in other religions, the act of breaking bread is considered some form of holy. Mm-hmm. So there's many reasons why. Whenever it came to dairy bars, well, that just plays right into it.
That's amazing. I can't wait to actually come visit, and
Yeah,
I
yes.
really hope you could just we'll get together. Just
Absolutely.
Take me around to all the different dairy bars.
Well, sure.
We'll do it in one day.
Oh,
And I'll,
see, I have a book for that. I have a book called 101 Things to Eat in Arkansas Before You Die, and it's guaranteed if you do manage to eat all 101 things in Arkansas in that book before you die, you probably will die. No.
And where can we buy this book?
All these books are available through Amazon.com. I have 11 books out there, mostly on the topic of food in Arkansas. One is about the food on both inside and outside of Arkansas. We'll give that one a pass. But it all started out with a book called Arkansas Pie, A Delicious Slice of the Natural State in 2012, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I usually put out 2 a year. I do write cookbooks, yes, but my main goal is travel guides because I want to get people out and about in the state of Arkansas to get feets and seats and heads and beds, and because the more we pump into our local economy, the more that everybody gets a little bit more in their pocket, and all boats rise with the tide. Oh my heavens, I sound like a tourism commercial.
Well, you know what? You sold me.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. I can't wait to come out there and check
Come across the
everything out.
river. There's a whole vast wonderland out there.
Yeah. Thanks so much for taking some time to talk with me
Thank
today.
you.
And we will see you out there.
You got it.
All right. Thanks.
After talking with Kat and getting lost again, I took a quick trip to the gaming tables.
Go fish. Sorry, I'll go.
More general foolishness aside, I took another trip through the labyrinthian hallways and ran into an old friend, Jen Mulvihill.
So we are sitting here with Jen Mulvihill. Jen, how you been?
I've been good. Doing all right.
It's been a bit.
Yeah, a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
No, it has been a while. I can't remember the last time I actually saw you.
Because I did your
Mid-South. I mean, this is Mid-South.
Yeah, this is MidSouth.
Yes.
I did your show and
MCFC.
Yes, MCFC.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about because we didn't get to talk about your show at all.
Right. So on the page, yes, we're going to be starting a new season. I got to interview a lot of great people.
Oh, yeah.
Sherilyn Kenyon, and Nevada Barr, and all kinds of cool people.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm throwing names out now, aren't I?
Let me just pick these names up that you dropped.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're going to be starting a new season. I'm not sure exactly when, but I've got a full lineup. Can't tell you. It's big secret. Top secret.
I know. But your show is a lot of fun to be on. You have such a fun way of getting into people's heads and figuring out kind of the whys behind the things.
Well, I enjoy researching, and you were really fun to research.
Oh, I'll take that as a compliment.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so what was it about mine that stood out as opposed to some of the other authors?
Well, because you have a lot of training behind you. You know, you did a lot. You've done a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes.
That is fair.
And so there was a lot of research involved that I had to.
And you know, it came out because you asked a question in the interview about one of the Nichols players,
Yeah.
college people that I was helping that college out with their theater department because it's a theater department. They don't get budget. All the budget goes to sport. But when that question came up, I was thoroughly surprised, but also pleased. It was a lot of fun. No, your interviews are great, and they're
Thank
fun
you.
to watch. They're really fun to be a part of.
Thank you. I recently got to interview the Dice Junkies, and then they interviewed me first, and then I interviewed them. So that was a lot of fun to go with.
Yeah, the tit for tat is always fun. It's because you go on someone's show and that was a lot of fun. You should come on my show.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, yeah, okay, of course we'll come on the show.
I think we did that all in one day, though. That was because we were at another convention, so it was like very convenient. I'll interview you. Okay, you come interview me now.
Yeah. What's fun right now is the difference because last time we interviewed, it was still height of pandemic.
Yes.
Everything was done online, but now we're seeing each other again.
Oh yeah, and it's so wonderful to be able to see everybody again.
Yeah.
I mean, the love. Everyone has
yeah.
been so, kept away from each other, and so there's so much love everywhere. You can just feel it in the air. I feel like there's a song about that somewhere.
Yeah, it's nice to get back out to see the old faces, and it's one thing to see them on the screen, but to see them in person,
Yes.
you can read so much more about a person that way. But I know the pandemic, we all had a lot of projects pop up because I can't tell you how many scripts or stories or whatever we started working on. Anything new with you?
I don't have anything out right now, but I am working on a couple of projects. I'm working on the 4th book to the Steel Root series.
Nice.
Yes, hopefully getting close to the end of that one. And then I'm also working on a project with a gentleman who wrote a script, and so I am novelizing his script.
Fantastic.
Yes, and so I'm really excited about that because it has to do with Knights Templars, and it's really totally different stuff than I usually write. And it's his story, and I'm just kind of filling in the gaps a little bit.
I actually know who you're talking about, and I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything yet,
but
yeah.
I'm very excited to see that.
So you know the
because,
story then, yeah.
I know a little bit. I know him. He's a wonderful guy.
Oh, yeah.
I've worked with him on some other stuff before.
I interviewed him too.
You did.
I did.
You did. I can't wait to see that because that's going to be great.
Yeah, I've been working on that as much as I can in between the other novel and Life. Life has really kicked a lot of people in the face, and
it has.
So everyone's been dealing with that. I'm not going to cry in my beer because everybody has beer to cry in. So
yeah, that is. I'm trying to think with that. I've actually never heard that turn of phrase.
I just made it up.
I like it. So that is one thing. So. One of the interesting things where we are right now, we're living outside Memphis now, and everything is very. There's this southern tinge to everything, and we were joking around the other day where you can make up a southern aphorism and it sounds completely legitimate. All you need is just 2 different nouns in a sentence. They can be completely unrelated. Like, oh, sweetie, you're nicer than a pancake on Thursday. It doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
In your head, you go, "Aw."
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, I don't get it, but aw.
Aw. Well, pancakes on Thursday are good.
They are actually. Can we have pancakes? We haven't made them in a while.
Actually, you're making me hungry for pancakes now.
Oh, there was my secret for pancakes is put a little bit of vanilla in the batter. Oh, it makes them so good.
Try peanut butter.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Interesting. I've
I mean,
never
do the
had
vanilla too,
Yeah.
but also add the peanut butter. It's like eating like a peanut butter cookie.
Ooh. Oh. That's. I don't care what this interview was about before. No, I don't care. We're talking about pancakes now. This is one of the fun things about sitting down with creative people, is that we will go off on absurd tangents that just won't stop.
It's perfect. It's perfectly normal.
It is. How many conventions have we sat down to talk, and it's just an hour has passed and we have no idea what we were talking about?
I can't even
beforehand.
count. There's no counting.
There's not. But I think that seeing each other again it's a very cathartic experience for a lot of us.
Yes.
And being able to get back on the road, to see people and have these face-to-face conversations is refreshing. And I think it's something we've been needing for a while.
Oh, I even bought a new hat for it.
Ooh, nice.
So,
Well-
looking forward to seeing everybody. I had to have a new hat because that's what Southern gals do. They buy new hats for the occasion.
Well, you know what they say. If you can't have a possum, don't put it in the refrigerator.
That's right.
Everyone says it. Look it up. Don't look it up.
No, you're absolutely right. It is. Everyone's been looking forward to seeing each other, and like I said, it's been wonderful. We've all missed each other.
Yeah.
People I haven't expected to see. Some people I didn't even think would be still alive are here. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah. It helps us give a sense of moving forward. And I think that throughout the last couple of years, the arts have been an incredibly important part. Writing, movies, TV, whatever it might be. I know that's how we kept ourselves sane.
Yeah.
But it gave us something to give other people to.
Right.
And that's something that I've had this conversation before, and I think I said to one of our mutual friends, I'm like, we're never going to stop doing what we do. We're always going to be writing something or filming something or making something. So we may as well just accept the fact that that's our lot and just try to make the best in that we can.
Yeah. I was recently, like I said, at another convention, and there was a panel, and there was quite a few writers on the panel, and the question was asked, when did you commit to be a writer? And I thought about it, and I was like, wow, I did commit to become a writer because I'm doing it, and I didn't realize that I had made that conscious decision. And now it's not anything I can stop doing, even if I try. You got to keep moving.
Yeah, there's just something about that creative process that putting together. I've had the story in my head. I've got the story out. Okay, I'm good. Know what's happening. Why is there another story in my head?
Oh yeah.
And now I've got to get this one out.
Yeah, I've got a lot of those. I have notepads after notepads of half-written stories. I'll get back to that later. Just,
Yeah. Or a bunch of SD cards full of footage where you go, I can put that together into something.
Yeah.
I know I can.
Yeah.
But
Another time.
yeah.
We've got time.
And that was one thing. The pandemic, it was, I've got time. Let me put this together. Let me put this out. Because my book I put out shortly after the pandemic started, and has it been that long?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't even think about that.
That's crazy, huh?
Yeah. And since then, the other projects that come up, there's always something. And I think the creative brain just has that drive. It doesn't turn off.
No. Once you start it up, that motor doesn't turn off ever.
It's like, what was it, Pringles? Once you pop.
Yes.
We are not sponsored by Pringles, by the way.
So we'd like to be.
Yet, Pringles, if you would like to sponsor us, please call me at the number on the bottom of the screen. Can we put that number in? No? Okay. I'll call you, Pringles. Well, Jen, this has been a wonderful, completely off the rails time, and I'm so glad you took the time to sit and talk.
Always a pleasure, Scott. Anytime.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
After a day full of meeting heroes, new friends, old friends, and everyone in between, I was tired and ready to go home. So I set out to find my way out of the hotel.